Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Man, check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is being an OG. I was in the barbershop the other day getting a haircut, and as I was leaving out of the barbershop, a brother that was sitting closest to the door, he was, just saying what's up. And I speak to everybody when I come in the barbershop, and I speak when I leave. I say peace to everybody or whatever. Like even the people that I don't know, I just say, catch y'all later, whatever. I'll say something, right? And so I'm walking out of the barbershop, and this young man, he couldn't have been no more than probably about 26, 27 years old enough really to be my child. And he says, "Yo, OG, I love those shoes, man." And I stopped and I looked back and I was like, "You talking to me?" He's like, yeah, I love those shoes, OG. And I was like, "Okay, man, appreciate it. And it wasn't the first time that I've been in public and been called an OG. I actually like OG. I don't mind being called OG. Now, if you are familiar with, terminology, an OG, at least back in the day, used to be referred to as an OG, short for original gangster. Now, if you know me, you know that there's nothing original gangsterish about me. But over the, these last 10, 15 years or what have you, the term OG has become more of a term of endearment to those of us who are seasoned, if you will, if you're a man. If you're older, it's a sign of respect. If a younger man calls you an OG, I would take OG over old head. But I'll be honest, especially as I've gotten older, I don't get upset about anybody calling me OG or old head or old school. Shout out to the homie Doug from the Northside Doug, my boy, who is the owner and operator of the Struggle Plate podcast. Hopefully he'll be back soon. He has some great news to share with everybody. So shout out to Doug. But yeah, Doug calls me old school and I call him Young Buck because Doug is literally like 34 years old, which is crazy because I think when I met Doug, he was probably like 24, 25. I've known Doug a minute. Nonetheless, like I said, it's a term of endearment. So if someone calls you an OG, or a lot of times people will say unk, short for uncle, or auntie for the ladies. Like I said, I don't take offense to it. But what it did make me realize as I got in the car and drove off was that, yeah, I am an OG. I'm not the last OG like Tracy Morgan, but I am an OG. And there's certain things that OGs are able to do or should do for the younger folk. Now, keep in mind, I'm someone who is 52 years old at the time of this recording. And I also have 3 sons of my own who are 26, 23, and 18 at the time of this recording, and a daughter who's soon to be 14. And so, they don't see me as an OG, but a lot of the stuff that I tell them is OG stuff, but I'm speaking as a father. So they're never going to look at me as an OG. I'm just dad to them, right? But there's a couple of things or some things that as an OG you should impart on the younger cats, particularly if they're willing to listen, because what you have nowadays is a lot of people who, particularly young men, who may not be ready to or willing to listen or hear what you have to say. So if you're able to grab their attention, if you're able to get their ears, whatever wisdom that you can impart into them as a man, you should do it. I truly believe in a couple of things. One, you got to be able to speak positive game into these young cats. And I'll call them cats or Thundercats. I don't call them YNs. But I think you have to speak positivity in them and give them positive game. Like, hey man, pull your pants up. You know, walk straight. Don't walk hunched over. When you walk in a room, walk in the room as if you own the room. Walk with confidence. Walk with swagger, if you will. Are they still using? Can I use swagger? I'm not sure if I can still use swagger, but I'm going to use it for this podcast. Yeah, you know, be firm. Give a man a firm handshake. Always give another man a firm handshake. Look a man in the eye when you're speaking to him or her. Look a woman in the eye when you're speaking to them. That's how you can tell when someone is sincere. If someone is talking to you and they're looking all around, they're looking up and down, if they won't look you in the eye, then that's one or two things. Either it's a sign of insecurity on their part or a sign of disrespect. And as I've said before many times on this podcast, you don't have to like me, but you will respect me. Disrespect will never be tolerated. But yeah, so those are things that you can tell a young man as an OG. Also understand that when you represent yourself, you represent your family. So when you step out into the world, step with that confidence, but also understand that you're stepping into the world, represent your family. It's no different than you being an athlete and taking the field or the court or anything. You step on a playing field or a basketball court, your name is on the back of your jersey. That's who you represent. And, it's important that you represent your family and yourself to the fullest. It's no different than you going out and working a 9 to 5, or you going to a college class, or you going to high school, or going to elementary school. You represent your family. So, always try to do your best. Always do your best. Be the best that you can be. I mean, like, that sounds cliche, but I mean, it's very, very key. And I think the more and more often that we do it, and the more and more we put that kind of wisdom and that kind of game, if you will, into a young man, sky's the limit. I think one of the things that, and I'm just speaking as a parent, one of the things that you can do is help build your child's self-esteem up. Now, ultimately, self-esteem is just that. It is self-esteem, but you have to show them and give them the confidence in the things that they're doing. Now, everybody can't be a great basketball player. Everybody can't be an architect. Everybody can't be an engineer. Everybody can't be a bowler. But the things that you can be, you hone in on those skills. I remember my late Uncle Ronnie used to tell us all the time. He used to say that every child has at least 7 or 8 God-given talents. And it's our job as parents and uncles and aunties and unks and OGs to mold those talents. And I think what happens is kids get to a certain age, and maybe they get to a certain place in school where the people around them stop developing those talents, and some just fall by the wayside. There are some kids who can really, like, I went to school in elementary school with some kids who could really, really draw. Like, I can't draw worth of nothing. Like, I could never, listen, I was so bad at art. I never could color inside the lines. I always colored outside of the lines. And that's just, I don't know if it's attention to detail or whatever it is, but I just never could. Right. But I was a great reader. I was really good at comprehension. So it's little things like that, but you have to, as an OG, impart these things and give game. Shout out to the Too Much Game podcast, the homie Uncle Dolomite. He talks about this all the time. This is for them. It's almost our job as OGs to give the game to the younger cats coming up, because more often than not, somebody gave us some type of game. Like for me, it was my dad, who still gives me game, my uncles, and then my homies around me. Everybody can give you game, but it's what you take from it, and then what it is that you put into other people. And why not spread the game? Why not, if you're an OG, why not give the game to any and everybody who's willing to listen? And in a lot of ways, that's what this podcast will do. At least this particular episode, Uncle Dolomite, his podcast, that's what he does each and every week. He's giving game. And, I would implore all of you to tap into his podcast, because there's some game that each and every one of us can get from his podcast. But yeah, as an OG, I'm definitely trying to impart those things into the younger generation. And these are in no particular order. Number 2, from an OG's perspective, I'll just let you in on a little secret. Gray is okay. Because here's the thing. If you get older, you're going to get gray. I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you, because some of y'all out there are cheating. I mean, I'm not mad at you for cheating, but if you're going to get older, you're going to get gray. I know you see people on TV and celebrities and stuff like that who are, older, and they have, no gray. But I mean, like, if you're 50 years old or older and you don't have any gray on your face or on your head, on the top of your head, then you're probably cheating, or you're wearing a wig. Shout out to Jay-Z. I mean, because that's clearly a wig that he has on his head. There's no way that Jay-Z... Listen, men don't get older and their hair just grows all of a sudden. Most of us tend to lose hair as we grow older. Now, for me, my hair is still growing. Could I grow dreadlocks if I wanted to? I guess if I tried, but I mean, I live in Atlanta. It's 1,000 degrees in the summertime. Why would I want to have all that hair on my head? But that's another story for another day. But gray is okay. Don't cheat the process. Now, if you want to, touch yourself up or whatever, that's fine. But if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You will see right around my lips and around my chin, it's gray. And it's going to be gray. And if I take this Yankees hat off, you'll see gray in my hair. It's not totally gray, but it's gray. And gray is okay, because here's the thing. Every living organism, every living thing is going to get older. It's called the cycle of life. Many of you may have heard about it in your science class when you were in the 3rd grade. And basically what it tells you is that we don't stay the same age. We are constantly getting older each day. You are older right now, as you're listening to this podcast, is the oldest that you have ever been. And guess what? 24 hours from now, the same will apply. So, I don't knock anybody that cheats and dyes their hair or dyes their mustache and beard. It's not something I'm gonna do. I am totally fine with the gray falling on this chocolate face. I'm totally cool with it. I do remember how it started. It started like with one little gray hair. It was like on this side right here on the right side of my face. And that one little gray was there, and I was able to cut the gray, and I got rid of it. And then one day I was like, I'm not gonna cut it. And then I was like, yeah, let me cut it. So I cut the little gray hair, and like maybe 2 days later, there was one on the left side. And then I was like, oh wow, so here they come. And I didn't think it was, it was kind of like a slow process. Then the next thing I know, it was like a football field. There was 11 on one side and 11 on the other side, offense and defense. And so, I mean, again, I'm not mad at anybody, particularly the ladies. And I get it, because a lot of ladies, is probably, maybe they feel like it makes them look and feel young if they dye their hair or have some dye in it. My mom is in her 70s and she still dyes her. And you won't see any gray. You'll see some gray in her hair, but not really a lot. Again, particularly for those of us who still have hair, and from an OG, gray is okay. From me to you, gray is okay. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. If you want a podcast where culture, conversation, and life collide, where you get insightful commentary, engaging discussions, and a fresh perspective on everything, then you need to listen to the 12 Kyle podcast. Hosted by the one and only, yours truly, 12 Kyle, a voice that you know and trust. This podcast will bring you thought-provoking moments, compelling stories, and a whole lot of fun. Whether you're a first time listener or just tuning in, each episode promises to be something new and exciting. So sit back, relax, join 12 Kyle, myself, and my guests as we break down the world around us and give you stories that you've never heard before, from nostalgic throwbacks to everything in between. The 12 Kyle podcast is a front row seat to this conversation. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of the 12 Kyle podcast, where the vibe is always real and the discussion is always worth your time. Another OG tip I want to give you all. And I want you to understand where I'm going with this. 20 years from today, you'd wish that you would be right where you are. And what I mean by that is we all want to get older, but then we also don't want to get older. But getting older is a part of life. But you need to make sure that what you're doing today is going to benefit you 20 years from now. Because 20 years from now, you would want to be the age that you are right now. If you are 50, 20 years from now, you'll be 70. You're going to want to do what it takes to keep living beyond 70. So ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing now that's going to benefit me later on in life? Am I eating right? Am I exercising? Am I taking care of myself? Am I taking care of my mental health? All of that stuff plays in a part of who we are and who we're trying to be 20 years from now. Now, I get it. When I was 18, I didn't think about being 38. When I was 18, 38 was old. Like, it was old. But you'd be surprised how your clock starts going even faster and these years just kind of stack up. I think it goes a little bit faster for those of us who have kids because we have walking examples and living examples of who we are that are bits and pieces of who we are. And I know, like, when I look at my kids, I'm like, I can remember when we didn't have any kids. I can remember the 90s when I was single and running around Atlanta trying to figure things out. And honestly, it didn't feel like it's been that long ago, but it technically has been. It's been like 27 years. And so, like, that time has come and gone so fast. And I'm like, where did the time go? The clock is going to keep ticking. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm 52. So and I plan to be here if the good Lord sees fit to it. I plan to be here at 72 or beyond 72. But what am I doing today that's going to help me while I'm 72? Because when I'm 72, I'm going to be like, man, I wish I'd have done this when I was 52. No, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live with those regrets. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself physically and emotionally. And more importantly, like I said, take care of your mental health. You got to do that. And be mindful about the things that you consume. I think a lot of times we pay attention to the stuff that we consume in our bodies, but we don't pay attention to the stuff that we consume between our ears and the stuff that we consume with our eyes. I'm very particular about the stuff that I watch. And that means on social media, on TV, all of that stuff. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to live, but this is from an OG's perspective. 20 years from today, you're going to wish that you are where you are right now. And, what are you doing today that you're going to make sure that you're good 20 years from now? You got to think about that. The next thing I would say from an OG's perspective, live your life like how you would want your name to ring out when you're gone. I know that sounds complicated, but it's really not. Live your life how you would want your name to continue after you're gone. Unfortunately, we lost a family friend a couple of weeks, or maybe about a month or so ago. She had a homegoing service, and she hadn't even reached 50. She was going to turn 50 this year, I think. And I'll be honest, I'm not good at funerals. I'm not really like the kind of guy that goes to a lot of funerals. But because it was a family friend, I, wanted to definitely pay my respects and be there to support my boy, who lost, his life partner. The thing that struck me about that was, even at her homegoing service, how glowingly the people in the church, family, friends spoke of her. And it's not that I didn't know that, but like, if you want people to say good things about you and remember you when you're gone, it all starts with what you do here while you're here on earth. Now here's the thing. We all know this. People go to funerals and, the focus is on the family and everybody. But after that, people start going back to their lives and maybe those phone calls to check up on people, the loved ones and stuff like that. Those phone calls kind of dissipate over a period of time. And the question is that when the deceased is gone, how are they remembered? And how does their name and their legacy carry on? Well, in this case, his family friend, she has a child, so her name will live on, but the child still has to live in this world without her mother. And it's touching because she's young. She's only 13 years old. I can't imagine, I don't know what it's like. My mom is still here, so I don't know what that feels like. Unfortunately, we all have to get to that point at some point, and it's no different for me because at some point, many years from now, I'll be gone. And one thing that I heard that was very key a couple of years ago that always stuck with me was that it says a parent's job is to prepare their child for a world and to live in a world without them. And I thought that was, very poetic and very instrumental and very true. I mean, so, that's your job as a parent, to prepare your children to live in a world without you and to be able to function in the world without you, because they're going to live in this world without you, but can they function? Are they going to fall down and kick and scream because you're gone, or just throw their hands up and say, I quit? No, it can't be like that. But yeah, it was touching. It was really, really sad because, she passed away unexpectedly. But the one thing that I did take away, amongst other things, from the homegoing service was that she was definitely loved and respected, and she did a lot in the 49 years that she was here. And so, I think that right there really stands out to me because, and I have to go back and look. I don't want to say she was 49 because she may have been 48. I can't remember her age, but she hadn't, I'll just put it like this. She hadn't reached 50. Right. And so to have lived that kind of life, or to have lived and accomplished everything that she accomplished in a very short period of time, relatively speaking, says a lot about who she was. And again, I go back to the point, you have to live your life like you want your name to continue on long after that service is over, long after, everybody's gone home, long after the years and years and years after you've left this earth. You want your name to ring out. You want people to continue to talk about, oh man, Kyle was such a great guy, or Junebug was such a great guy, whoever, you want that. You want that to be your legacy. I often marvel when I talk to my dad and he tells me about my great grandfather. I never met my great grandfather. He was long gone by the time I was born, but my dad was named after my great grandfather, which was his grandfather. And he speaks so highly of him. And he was a man who was in this town in Ohio, and he was very much loved. And even though it was, it wasn't segregated, but I mean, he was a black man, obviously, in Ohio, but he was like the most respected man in the town, black or white. And the white folks didn't mess with him. They respected him. They came and they talked to him. And this was, I mean, you're talking about the 1800s, so it was rare. I mean, it was rare for that type of thing to happen. And late 1800s, early 1900s, I would guess. And but that's who he was, right? And so, he was a great man who lived a great life and had a great family and so forth and so on. And like I say, my dad was named after him. And I love hearing my dad tell stories about him because, one, I didn't know him. And then two, his name still lives on. His name lived through my dad, but it's also, it lives on in that town in Ohio, and the people, and, having a street named after him, all this kind of stuff, all of that stuff matters. And I think when you have those type of things, you have a person who's lived that type of lifestyle. And as an OG, I would tell that to anybody, live your life how you would want your name to ring out when you're gone. Because at some point, we're all going to be gone. What will they say about you? How long will they mourn you? How long will they still talk about you? How long will they remember all of the things that you did? More importantly, people will always remember what you said, and they'll always remember how you made them feel. You got to keep that in mind as you move forward. And the last thing I would impart to the younger cats from an OG's perspective, time is more important than money as you get older. It's way more important than money as you get older, because as you get older, you'll realize that no matter how much money you have, you know that you don't have as much time. And as you get older, you understand that the time that you have left is less than the time that you remember having when you were younger. When you were 15 or 16 years old, you couldn't even fathom being 75 years old. But if you're 75 years old, you're realizing that you're probably not going to live another 75 years, right? And so you have more time behind you than you do ahead of you. Now, none of us know when our time is up, and I don't want to sound morbid or anything like that, but time is more important than money. And it's important that you don't waste your time. It's important that you stack your money, so that you can be prepared for retirement, if that's what you so choose to do. Some people don't ever want to retire. Some people are ready to retire tomorrow. But, you realize this as time goes on. It's also not really what you do with your time. Not what you do with your money, but it's what you do with your time. Because time is money. Time is very important. You can always make $1. You won't always get that time. And I heard the old saying, nobody lays on their deathbed wishing that they had more money. You just wish you had more time. And so it's all about the time that you make. In conclusion, as an OG, I feel like it's very important for me to impart these things on people, more particularly the younger folk, because they're the 25, 26, 28-year-olds who, in their minds, seemingly have a lifetime ahead of them. And they do. But it's very important that you take advantage of the time that you have. None of us are promised tomorrow. You want to make sure that you live your life a full life. Live every day to the fullest. Get as much as you can out of each day. Breathe, exercise, eat well, have fun, find something to laugh at. Even if it's just laughing at yourself. Find a meme or find a show on TV or find a comedian or somebody or something to laugh at. Enjoy each day. From an OG's perspective, I would tell you that you have to, while you got to take life serious, don't take life too serious. We only get one of these things, so we got to live it to the fullest. You owe that to yourself and to those who are watching you and will come behind you when you become an OG. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every Thursday and every Sunday. If you're on social media, follow us, 12 Kyle podcast. On social media, we're all across the board. Also, we have a new baby. It is called the Rap Soul Podcast. It's the best music podcast that you've never heard. On that podcast, we talk about music from hip hop, rap, soul, and R&B from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Also, we have merch. Click the link in the description box. That way you can buy 12 Kyle podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.